The pastor who hurt you is still preaching. The church that silenced you is still open. The system that chose the leader over the wounded is still running, and nobody has ever said, we were wrong. I'm a therapist and an ordained minister, and I need to say something that might be hard to hear. The apology that you're waiting for may never come, but your healing can't wait for it. Let me explain why most churches, and as a matter of fact, many institutions don't apologize. First, the institution protects itself. This isn't unique to churches, it's how institutions work. The system's first priority is survival and not accountability. Acknowledging harm creates legal exposure, financial risk, and reputational damage. So the system minimizes, redirects, or goes silent. It's not personal, it's structure. Doesn't make it right, but it explains why waiting for the institution to name what it did is usually waiting for something the institution has every incentive not to do. Second, the leader often doesn't see it. Authority can at times create a blind spot. Spiritual authority can create a blind spot. When someone believes that they're speaking for God, they oftentimes can't distinguish between their will and God's will. To them, what they did wasn't abuse, it was just part of ministry or the calling. The correction wasn't cruelty, it was discipline. And your pain is not evidence of their failure, it's evidence of your rebellion. So they're not withholding an apology, they don't believe that they don't owe one. And third, the community many times has moved on. The wound you experienced is still fresh in you. The church's calendar, however, kept turning because new members kept coming. New programs and ministries were being launched. The thing that changed your life was a paragraph within their history. So they're not ignoring your pain, they're just moving on with what they've done, and many times they may have forgotten that it happened. So, what happens when you wait for an apology that never comes? You stay connected to the source of your pain, not physically because you may have left, but emotionally you're still tied to it. You're still checking. You're still watching social media, still hoping that someone in the community will finally validate what happened to you and said it was wrong. Waiting for an apology gives them ongoing power over your healing. As long as your peace depends on their acknowledgement, they hold the key to a door that you need to walk through. And they many times don't even know that they're holding it. Or in some cases, they may not even care that they're holding it. This is what I see in my room. People who've left church 5, 10, 20 years ago and are still waiting. People who've left marriages 5, 10, 20 years ago are still waiting. Not waiting to go back, but waiting to be validated about their experience. Waiting for someone to say that you weren't crazy. This really happened and it was wrong. That validation is real, and I will say it does matter, and that validation is important in healing. But it does not have to come from the person or the system or the place that harmed you. So, how do you heal when the apology isn't coming? Let me give you 4 practices. Number 1, name what happened out loud to a safe person, not on social media or not in a journal by yourself. A journal is a good thing to have to be able to lay it out, but to a human being who can listen to you, look at you, and say, I believe you. That validation doesn't have to come from an institution. It can come from a therapist, a friend, a community of people who understand you and what you've been through. What your nervous system needs is a witness. Someone who hears your story and doesn't flinch. Someone who hears your story and doesn't minimize it. Someone who hears your story and doesn't spiritualize it away. Second, separate God from the institution. Now, this can often be the hardest work, but I often say it's the most important. The church hurt you. God didn't. The pastor or leader may have used God's name. God didn't authorize the harm. And as long as God and the church are fused within your nervous system, it's hard to approach one without fearing the other. Separation is part of that work, and it usually takes someone trained in mental health who understands both faith and trauma to help you with that separation. So, separate God from the institution. Third, and this is important, grieve what you lost. Grieve what you lost. Because what you lost was community. What you lost was belonging. What you lost was a version of faith, maybe that was simple and safe. What you lost possibly was some friendships. We can't heal from losses that we don't grieve. And many times, people skip the grief because we're stuck in anger. I will say anger is a stage of grief, and it's easy, but we also have to grieve. To sit with the fact that something we loved that was so important with us or important to us is now gone and is not coming back the way that it was. And fourth, build something new. Don't wait for the old system to reform. Build a new table. Find a new community. Create a new practice of faith that belongs to you and not to the institution that installed it. This may be the hardest step because it requires us to stop looking backward and start creating or shaping something new or looking forward. However, I say it's also the most liberating step because at that point, we're no longer waiting for permission to heal. Let me close with this. Some of us may be thinking, that sounds nice, but I'm not there yet. That's okay. You don't have to be there. Take your time. I do want you to hear something, though. The fact that you're watching this video is proof that your faith isn't dead. Dead faith does not search for healing. Dead faith does not watch a video for a therapist and a minister at midnight or some other times of the day or evening. Dead faith doesn't cry out about a YouTube video about a woman named Hagar who ran into the wilderness and was found by God. So I want to say this to you, you're not dead, you're just wounded. And wounds, especially when we care for them, heal. Our healing needs a witness, a safe space, and a God who sees. And the courage to build a new table, even when the old one never acknowledged they broke the first one. This has been a 4-week series. We started by naming the gap. We looked at what spiritual trauma does to our attachment to God. We sat with Hagar in the wilderness and watched God find her outside the institution. And today we talked about healing when the apology isn't coming. If this series has helped you, share it with someone who's sitting in the gap right now. Someone who may feel too wounded for church and too faithful for secular spaces. They need to know they're not alone. And if you need someone who can hold both your faith and your pain, that is some of the work that I do. Information is in the description. Thank you for watching. Take care of all of yourself, your mind, your heart, and your spirit.